Ever wonder what happens when you toss a hotshot presidential spokesperson and a mute sign language interpreter into a blender of political drama and personal chaos? Welcome to When the Phone Rings, the 2024 K-drama that's got more twists and turns than Mount Akina from Initial D. Let's dive into the wild world of Baek Sa-eun and Hong Hee-ju because honestly, analyzing fictional characters is way cheaper than therapy. Baek Sa-eun is the youngest presidential spokesperson in South Korea. Coming from a prestigious political family, his background includes time spent as a war correspondent, hostage negotiator, and main anchorman. Hong Hee-ju is the daughter of a major news group proprietor. She has selective mutism due to an accident when she was little, or so we thought, and works as a sign language interpreter in court and on TV. Their marriage was largely due to convenience, and for the past 3 years, they haven't communicated with each other or had meals together, pretending to be a happily married couple. And then one day, Hong Hee-ju is kidnapped by an unidentified person, which changes their marriage life. So grab your favorite comfort snack, mine's a pint of self-doubt with a sprinkle of existential dread, and let's break down these characters. Because if we can't fix our own lives, we might as well overanalyze someone else's, right? Things take a turn when Hee-ju gets kidnapped by a masked man who hijacks her car using malware. The kidnapper calls Sa-eun demanding a ransom. But Sa-eun, thinking it's a scam, tells the guy to call back when there's a corpse. Cold, right? Hee-ju hears this and, understandably, is hurt. She manages to escape by crashing the car and doesn't tell Sa-eun about the kidnapping. Instead, she uses the kidnapper's phone to call Sa-eun, disguising her voice with the built-in modulator, and starts blackmailing him, demanding a divorce. As the story unfolds, Sa-eun starts to suspect that Hee-ju might be connected to the mysterious calls he's been receiving. He learns that the voice analysis of the caller is a 99.99 match to Hee-ju, but he doesn't confront her directly. Instead, he tries to understand her motives through the calls, leading to a series of mind games between the two. The relationship starts to change when Sa-eun acknowledges Hee-ju as his wife for the first time in 3 years, marking a turning point in their strained relationship. This public declaration shocks her and shifts their dynamic, adding more depth to what we thought was just surface-level marriage imprisonment. Baek Sa-eun walks through life with the emotional range of a dead fish, or so it seems. Here's the thing about Sa-eun. He's a guy who thrives on control. Whether it's his high-profile job or his marriage, everything he does screams damage control. Dude probably has a checklist for brushing his teeth. But what's fascinating is that control doesn't equal connection. This guy can negotiate a hostage crisis, but can't figure out how to have dinner with his wife without it turning into a Cold War. His hyper-focus on success and public image creates a barrier. He's so busy being the youngest presidential spokesperson and political golden boy that he forgets how to be a human being. You can tell his choices are shaped by fear, not the loud screaming kind, but the quiet, insidious type that whispers to him, if you let go of control, everything will fall apart. Sa-eun's avoidance of emotional vulnerability is his Achilles heel. He's like a dude who skips out on a Smash Bros tournament with the lads, not because he's lazy, but because he's scared of failing at something he's not good at. And let's talk about his reaction to the kidnapping incident. When the kidnapper calls, Sa-eun's dismissive attitude is chilling. He doesn't just miss the urgency, he's actively detached. That moment shows how deep his emotional repression runs. For Sa-eun, showing concern might mean exposing his own flaws, and that's a risk he's unwilling to take, at least at first. It's like he's built this emotional moat around himself, but instead of keeping enemies out, it traps him inside. But then as the series progresses, we see glimmers of change. Sa-eun starts to confront his own failings. It's subtle, like the emotional equivalent of switching from instant ramen to meal prep roasted chicken, but it's there. And when he finally acknowledges to Hee-ju that she is his wife, it's not just about repairing their relationship. It's him finally stepping into the uncomfortable space of vulnerability, admitting that he cares. Let's give Hee-ju her flowers because she's carrying some serious emotional weight here. This is a woman who spent years in silence, literally. Her mutism, forced upon her by her own mother, is more than just a physical condition. It's a metaphor for how sidelined she's been, not just in her marriage, but in her own life. At first glance, Hee-ju might seem passive. She's the quiet one in the relationship, the one who adapts rather than confronts. But don't get it twisted, Hee-ju is not a pushover. Her silence is her strength. It forces the people around her, especially Sa-eun, to confront their own discomfort. When you're with Hee-ju, you can't hide behind words. And that's terrifying for someone like Saeun, who uses his verbal dexterity as a shield. The kidnapping is a turning point for Hee-ju. While most people would crumble under that kind of trauma, me included, I can't even handle a delayed Amazon package. Hee-ju uses it as a catalyst. She flips the script, taking the kidnapper's phone and using it to manipulate Saeun into confronting their broken marriage. That's not passive. That's pretty badass. Her decision to disguise her voice and blackmail Saeun is both genius and heartbreaking. It's a desperate attempt to reclaim her agency and freedom in a relationship where she's been a ghost. What's wild is that even though she's technically the one playing games, her actions are rooted in a need for honesty. She doesn't want revenge. She wants truth. And for Hee-ju, that means forcing Saeun to see her not as a silent accessory to his life, but as a person with her own needs and desires. The marriage between Saeun and Hee-ju is like watching two people try to build a sandcastle during a hurricane. It's messy, doomed to fail, and somehow you can't look away. What's interesting is how their dysfunction is rooted in miscommunication. Not the kind where someone forgets to take out the trash, but the deep existential kind where both parties are speaking entirely different emotional languages. For Saeun, the marriage is a box he needed to check, or so we thought at first. On the surface, it's a strategic alliance, a way to bolster his image and career. For Hee-ju, it's a prison. She's trapped in a relationship where her voice, both literal and metaphorical, is ignored. This dynamic creates a vicious cycle. Saeun's detachment fuels Hee-ju's resentment, which in turn reinforces his need for control. It's like they're playing an endless game of emotional chicken. But here's the thing about the relationship. It's not just a story about failure. It's about two people who are deeply flawed, trying and often failing to connect. And isn't that all of us? Like, sure, I'm not in a loveless marriage, but I've ghosted and have been ghosted by people because I was too scared to admit I was struggling. Saeun and Hee-ju's journey is a reminder that relationships are hard work. They're messy, uncomfortable, and sometimes they make you want to scream into a void, but they're also worth fighting for. One of the most fascinating aspects of the series is the power dynamic between Saeun and Hee-ju. At first, it seems like Saeun holds all the cards. He's the one with the career, the public persona, the voice. But as the show goes on, we see Hee-ju quietly reclaim her power. The phone calls are a brilliant narrative device. Through them, Hee-ju forces Saeun to engage with her on her terms. She becomes her true unfiltered self, making him the one who's unsure, vulnerable, and out of control. It's a role reversal that not only levels the playing field but also exposes the cracks in Saeun's armor. What's interesting is how Saeun reacts to this shift. At first, he's defensive, trying to maintain his facade of control. But over time, he starts to lean into this discomfort. He begins to see Hee-ju not as an obstacle but as a mirror, one that reflects his own failings and forces him to confront them. It's a slow, painful process, but it's also incredibly human. Because let's be real, bro, growth isn't pretty. It's awkward, chaotic, and sometimes it feels like you're just fumbling around in the dark, hoping you don't trip over your own insecurities. Silence is a reoccurring theme in the series, and it's used to a devastating effect. For Hee-ju, silence is both a limitation and a weapon. It's what makes her invisible in her marriage, but it's also what gives her power. Her silence forces Saeun to confront his own noise, the excuses, the justifications, the rationalizations he tells himself to avoid feeling anything real. For Saeun, silence is terrifying. It's the void he spent his whole life running from. He fills it with ambition, success, and a carefully curated public image, but Hee-ju's silence cuts through all of that. It's like she's holding up a mirror to his soul, and he hates what he sees. But that's the beauty of their dynamic. It's through her silence that Saeun finally learns to listen, not just to Hee-ju, but to himself. First up, let's talk about Hee-ju's silence and how it messes with your brain. Watching someone exist in such profound quiet forces you to confront your own relationships with communication. You start to notice all the ways we rely on words to fill space, to avoid uncomfortable truths, and to pretend we're okay when we're not. For Hee-ju, mutism isn't just her reality, it's her prison and her superpower. And honestly, bro, her silence left me questioning my own inability to shut up. I'll admit it, I'm the guy who over-explains everything to avoid feeling vulnerable. But seeing Hee-ju navigate life without words made me realize how much strength there is in simply sitting with the discomfort. It's a gut punch because it makes me wonder, if I couldn't use words as a crutch, would I even know who I am? Then there's Saeun, who's basically the poster boy for bottling everything up until it explodes. Watching him is like seeing your reflection after pulling a university all-nighter, uncomfortable and ugly. His constant need for control feels all too familiar. Raise your hand if you've ever thought, if I just keep it together, no one will notice I'm falling apart inside. You all can't see it, but my hand is raised. But here's where it gets deep. Seo-eun's journey shows how repression doesn't just hurt you, it hurts everyone around you. The guy spends years shutting out Hee-ju, not realizing that his walls are suffocating her. It's like watching a slow-motion car crash, except the car is your unresolved childhood trauma and the road is your adult relationships. For me, it was a stark reminder of how easy it is to convince yourself that you're protecting others by staying distant, when really, you're just too scared to deal with your own mess. Seo-eun doesn't start healing until he faces his fears head-on, and bro, that's a whole mood. Because let's be real, avoiding your problems might feel safe in the moment, but it's a one-way ticket to Lonely Town. One of the most gut-wrenching parts of the series is the weight of everything that goes unsaid. Hee-ju and Seo-eun spends years skirting around the truth, trapped in this weird limbo where neither of them feels seen or heard. And as a viewer, that tension starts to gnaw at you. It's like holding your breath underwater. You know it's unsustainable. This made me think about how often we do this in real life. How many times have you left things unsaid because you were scared of the fallout? Watching the relationship crumble under the strain of unspoken truth hits way too close to home. It's like the drama is asking us, hey, remember that time you didn't text your friend back because you didn't want to admit you were struggling?
분명히 말하는데 타협은 없을 겁니다.
The kidnapping subplot is more than just a plot device to introduce conflict. It's a psychological earthquake. For Hee-ju, it's the moment she realizes she's been living in survival mode for too long. And for Seo-eun, it's a wake-up call that his detachment has consequences. But as a viewer, it forces us to think about our own thresholds. How much are you willing to endure before you finally demand change? I'll be honest, I didn't expect to feel so personally attacked by a fictional kidnapping. But seeing Hee-ju take control of the situation made me realize how often we wait for external forces to shake us out of complacency. Like, why does it take a crisis to make us confront what's broken? Watching her navigate the aftermath of the kidnapping left me wondering, if I was in her shoes, would I have the courage to reclaim my agency, or would I just keep pretending everything's fine? The power dynamics between Seo-eun and Hee-ju are another can of worms of psychological complexity. At first, it seems like Seo-eun holds all the cards, but as the series unfolds, you realize how much power Hee-ju wields through her resilience and emotional intelligence. This dynamic left me thinking about the subtle ways we navigate power in our relationships. How often do we let someone else take the lead because it feels easier than fighting for what we deserve? And on the flip side, how often do we unconsciously wield power over others without realizing the impact it has on them? For me, this was a tough pill to swallow. I've definitely been guilty of both, playing the victim to avoid responsibility and leaning into control when I'm scared of losing it. Seeing these dynamics play out between Seo-eun and Hee-ju felt like I was getting called out by a drama that knows all my secrets. What the show nails is how messy healing can be. Neither Seo-eun or Hee-ju has a neat linear arc. Their growth is full of setbacks, misunderstandings, and moments of raw vulnerability. And honestly bro, that's what makes it so relatable. Because real life, it's not a motivational poster. It's a series of awkward missteps and small victories. There's something deeply cathartic about watching these characters stumble through their healing journeys. It reminds you that progress doesn't always look like progress. Sometimes it's just getting out of bed when everything feels pointless. Sometimes it's apologizing even when you're scared it won't fix anything. And sometimes it's just sitting with the discomfort and trusting that it won't last forever. Here's where it gets meta. As a viewer, you're not just watching the drama, you're participating in it. It forces you to confront your own biases and emotional blind spots. Do you empathize with Seo-eun's fear of vulnerability, or do you judge him for it? Do you root for Hee-ju's empowerment, or do you feel uncomfortable with her methods? Your reaction says as much about you as they do about the characters. For me, this was both fascinating and humbling. There were moments when I wanted to shake Seo-eun and tell him to get his act together, only to realize I've been just as emotionally unavailable in my own relationships. And there were times I felt conflicted about Hee-ju's actions, only to recognize how often I've suppressed my own needs to keep the peace. Here's the big existential question that the show plants in your brain like a sneaky earworm. Can love survive when communication fails? This drama doesn't just tiptoe around this, it puts it in a chokehold and drags it through an emotional minefield. And if you're anything like me, grappling with the chaos of human relationships, this question hits harder than a leg cramp in the middle of the night. Let's kick off with the obvious, Hiju's literal silence. Her mutism is a metaphor for the gaps in their marriage. Communication in this drama isn't about talking, it's about what doesn't get said. And let me tell you bro, this drama made me realize just how much I suck at saying the important stuff. Ever ignore someone because you didn't want to deal with confrontation? Yeah, me too. Hiju's silence made me think about all the times I chose avoidance over honesty. It's not just about speaking, it's about the fear of being misunderstood, or worse, rejected. Watching her navigate this with Saeun felt like a punch to the gut because, spoiler alert, I've been the guy who didn't show up when it mattered. Here's the thing bro, love is often painted as this magical force that conquers all. But this drama is like, nah dude, love isn't enough without effort. Wise words from our favorite section chief. Saeun and Hiju's relationship is a case study in how love can wither without understanding. They care about each other, sure, but they're stuck in this limbo where neither knows how to reach the other. This hit me hard because it made me question my own relationships. Am I really putting in the work to understand the people I care about, or am I just skating by on the assumption that love will magically fix everything? Spoiler, I'm probably skating. And while I'd like to think I'm a decent human, this drama was a reminder that love isn't a feeling, it's an action. And bro, sometimes I'm just too lazy or scared to act. Let's talk about fear for a second. Saeun's fear of vulnerability and Hiju's fear of being unheard are the twin engines driving this dysfunctional love train. And you know what? I felt seen. How many times have I avoided a tough conversation because it felt easier to let things fester? Too many to count, my dude. Here's where it gets real. Fear doesn't just block communication, it warps it. Saeun's cold exterior isn't who he is, it's who he thinks he has to be to keep everything under control. And Hiju's silence isn't weakness, it's a shield. This dynamic reminded me of all the ways I've armored up in relationships thinking I was protecting myself when really I was just isolating the people who cared about me. One of the most frustrating and relatable aspects of the drama is how much damage assumptions can cause. Saeun assumes Hiju doesn't want to connect with him while Hiju assumes Saeun doesn't care about her. And as a viewer, you're screaming at the screen like, just talk to each other. But then you realize how often you've done the exact same thing in your own life. I'm the king of jumping to conclusions, bro. Someone doesn't text back and I'm immediately spiraling into, they hate me now, territory. This drama was a wake-up call to chill out and give people the benefit of the doubt. Because more often than not, the story we tell ourselves about someone else's actions is just that, a story. And half the time, it's fiction. Here's what really stuck with me. Growth is messy and it hurts. Saeun and Hiju don't have some magical epiphany that fixes everything. Their progress is slow, difficult, and full of setbacks. And honestly, that's what makes it so real. It's like the drama is saying, hey bro, you're gonna screw up, but that's part of the process. This was a tough pill to swallow because, like most dudes, I'd like to think I've got it all figured out. But the drama reminded me that growth isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up even when you're scared you'll fail. And bro, I fail a lot. But watching Saeun and Hiju take baby steps towards understanding each other made me think that maybe failure isn't the end. It's part of the journey. So here's the answer to the original question, can love survive when communication fails? The answer, according to this drama, is yes, but only if you're willing to put in the work. Love isn't this magical self-sustaining thing. It needs fuel, and that fuel is honesty, vulnerability, and a whole lot of effort. Thanks again to Section Chief. But here's the catch. It's not just about talking, it's about listening. It's about being willing to sit with someone else's pain without trying to fix it. And bro, that's hard. I spent most of my life thinking love meant solving problems, but sometimes it's just about being there. And yeah, that's scary because what if your best isn't enough? But the show taught me that showing up is half the battle. The rest, well, that's up to the both of you. Next time you're in a situation where communication feels impossible, ask yourself, are you really trying, or are you just scared? And if the answer is the latter, maybe take a page out of Saeun and Hiju's book, because if they can claw their way out of the emotional void, so can we. Love isn't easy and neither is communication. But if this drama taught me anything, it's that the effort is worth it. So the next time the metaphorical phone rings in your life with a call from 406, don't ignore it. Pick it up, bro. You never know, it might just change everything. Thanks everyone for watching this video. If you enjoyed what you saw, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more content like this. Also be sure to check out my other videos for more insight on other dramas and shows. Your support means a lot to me and it helps me grow this channel. If you have any thoughts, questions, or suggestions for future videos, please drop them in the comments down below. Again, thank you for watching this video and I'll see you next time.